Hi, I'm Terry Taylor. Welcome to episode number 9, coming to you from the couch today of The Terry Taylor Show. Welcome. Hope you all had an awesome weekend. I know I did. Uh, I got some news for you. So, next week, I haven't picked a day for it yet. I'm going to be starting my new show on the channel, which is called Get Stuffed, which is all about food. And we're going to be cooking food. We're going to be eating food. It's going to be a once a week show. That show. It's not going to be like the daily show. I just haven't figured what day I'm going to put it on yet. It might be Wednesday or Thursday of next week. But anyway, look out for it. I'm going to give you all sorts of information, updating what's going on with that. And basically, what it is we're going to talk about food. We're going to cook food. We're going to eat food. We're going to talk about chefs and restaurants and have food stories and how food impacts culture. I mean, we're just going to get real sweaty about food. It's gonna be pretty good. I'm very excited to bring that to you guys next week. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel. It's gonna be called Get Stuffed. So anyway, welcome to today's show. Let's get right into it. We had some news come out this weekend, and what we found out, we have some news on Avengers: Infinity War, which is due out in 2018. I believe May of 2018. I believe it's May 8th. I have to double check on that. But it's been condensed to one film. It was originally announced it was going to be a part 1 and a part 2. So what it is now is, because they had release dates for both of these, Infinity War, the entire story is going to be in one film, Infinity War, which comes out first, which leaves open to Avengers 4, which takes the place of the second release date. And the Russo brothers have come out and said that there's going to be some spillover into the other movie and the other standalone films, as there is in this universe. But the entirety, for the most part, of Infinity War is going to take place in that one film, which is cool. I mean, I trust the Russo brothers. They did a fantastic job with Civil War. I mean, obviously they're taking the idea of the comic and running with it. They're not telling the story of the comic book. So I expect the same from Infinity War. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm really interested to see how all these characters are going to be coming in and interacting with each other, which leads us to the fact that Vin Diesel actually came out and said that, as he is Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy, that the Guardians of the Galaxy will be part of Infinity War. And, everybody kind of assumed that was the thing anyway, but nobody actually had any sort of confirmation. And Vin Diesel came out and basically confirmed it during I believe it was a Facebook Live broadcast that he was doing. So he came out, he was like, yeah, we're going to be in Infinity War, which is, it's not really news to me. I kind of figured that was going to be the case anyway, but apparently he felt the need to clarify. So there you go. We have Guardians in Infinity War. I mean, that's awesome. But it is interesting to note that they were talking about how in Guardians of the Galaxy there's not going to be an Infinity Stone. Thanos is not in Guardians of the Galaxy, so there was speculation that maybe the Guardians aren't going to make it, but, I mean, I don't see how that would even, why would they even set up the Guardians in the universe if we're not taking the Marvel Universe into space? I mean, that's the next move as we move into the next phase. I mean, we're sort of at the beginning of Phase 3 here. Well, I guess we're like about a third of the way through Phase 3 here, and after we have Infinity War, we're going to go right into Phase 4, which, fingers crossed, maybe we'll get the Fantastic Four back and actually do something good with them. Do them right, Maybe we get some Galactus action. That would be pretty rad. If anybody's listening to me out there, I have ideas. So anyway, that's the news on Infinity War. But still talking about the Marvel Universe, there's a guy who had tweeted. His name is Daily Person. If I'm saying your name wrong, I'm sorry. And he's like an underground director. He does comedy shorts and stuff like that. He's Australian, I believe, and he tweeted set photos from Thor Ragnarok in Australia, where they were filming in Brisbane. In Brisbane. Anyway, one of the photos is of Chris Hemsworth, holding a card. It looks like a business card with the address 177A Bleecker Street. And for those of you that know, that happens to be the address of the Sanctum Sanctorum of Doctor Strange. So are we going to have some Thor Doctor Strange crossover before we get into Infinity War? It's interesting to note that Loki is on set, and Thor is from Asgard, which is already, we're dealing with realms and stuff, and Loki uses magic. So it would be interesting to have a little Doctor Strange go in there, maybe some sort of cross-dimensional thing. Who knows? I guess it remains to be seen what they do with Doctor Strange the film, which comes out in November of this year. But I think that it's really cool to blend all these things together. Now, it's also interesting to note that the director of Doctor Strange is Taika Waititi, and he has directed comedy stuff like Flight of the Conchords. He did What We Do in the Shadows. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was also a little misdirection on the director's part, like that they would throw the address in there sort of as like an Easter egg in these set photos that were released, because obviously all these set photos that were released with the okay by the studio. So, I wouldn't put it past them, but it does make sense for Doctor Strange to be at least maybe a cameo in Thor Ragnarok. It would make sense, especially since it's basically like a buddy. It's a buddy traveling, like, adventure movie that takes place in space, kind of thing. I think that would be a really cool idea. But it was interesting that address showed up in those set photos. Other than that, we saw Loki and Thor looking great. Thor back with the long hair. There were some other photos that Mark Ruffalo had posted with Hemsworth with the short hair. And the footage that they had showed at Comic-Con, Hemsworth had the short hair. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they play around with the timelines, or why, what period this was that Thor has this short hair. So yeah, that's the news coming out of the Marvel world, as it were. Episode 8 of Star Wars. We're moving to Star Wars now, so keep up, folks. Star Wars Episode 8 is apparently really ahead of schedule. Excuse me, I'm still trying to shake that illness from last week. So Episode 8 is wrapped. They finished filming it. I mean, granted, we're going to have some reshoots. Everybody on the internet is going to freak out and say, "Oh my God, Episode 8, everything's wrong with Episode 8. They fucked it all up there. They have to reshoot it. Blah, blah, blah." Everybody's going to freak out. Calm down. This is to be expected. But as it is now, Episode 8 is done. They've wrapped shooting. And John Williams, I believe next week, is going in to start scoring the film. And he said a couple of interesting comments when he was asked about it. He said he was talking about, if anybody else, could write music for these Star Wars films, and Rogue One is being scored by somebody else, but in the vein of John Williams, just as Rogue One is scored by somebody else, in the vein of John Williams, But as far as the saga films go, it should pretty much be John Williams until he can no longer physically do them anymore, in my opinion, as long as he wants to do them. But he's also voiced how much he loves Daisy Ridley, and how much he loves Rey's character, and that how much fun he has scoring for her. And he said how interesting it's going to be when he sees a cut of the movie next week to start scoring, thinking about the score to Rey's father. So we're going to get Rey's dad in Episode 8. We're going to find out who at least he is, because John Williams dropped that little nugget right there. I mean, whether or not it was intentional that he said that, or if he just slipped it up, being excited about talking about the project, whatever. I mean, I'm sure they're not going to slap him with a fine. He is John Williams. They probably looked at this like, John, But whatever, it is what it is, and it is out there that Episode 8 is going to be, and we're going to find out who Rey's dad is. But I kind of thought this as well. I have to agree with, I was watching Jedi Council, I believe it was last week or the week before, and Christian Harloff on that show had mentioned that he thinks they're going to give us right away. They're not going to give us some big mystery. They're going to tell us right away who Rey's parents are, because essentially episode 8 is going to pick up right where Rey was left with Luke, meeting him for the first time, handing him the lightsaber. It's going to pick up right there, and I think I have to agree with him. Christian Harloff made the point of saying, and I agree with him, that I think right there, as soon as the movie starts, we're going to find out who Rey's parents are. And but it's interesting to note that we're probably going to be either meeting Rey's dad, whether it be in flashbacks or some other fashion, at least to the point where they're having he's going to have his own score, like his own song in the score. I just hope that they don't do the mistake that they did, which they didn't in The Force Awakens, because they waited to release the soundtrack and the score after, I believe it was the day after the movie was released, because they had already made that mistake in The Phantom Menace when they dropped the score like a week or two before the film came out. And the last, the track, Qui-Gon's Heroic End, was right there listed as a track title. Somebody screwed up there. So that's not going to happen again. But it is interesting to note that, is the score only going to be used as a reference point when Luke tells, or whoever tells Rey who her parents are? Is this going to be something that's only used as a reference mark, as it's spoken about, they'll use that theme, or are we going to meet them? It's interesting. I'm looking forward to see how that plays out. You know what? Shit, we're jumping back to Marvel again. That's all I have to say about that. Just very exciting though that John Williams. Think about Star Wars without John Williams' music. It's almost like another character in the films themselves. So I'm very excited that he's going to be scoring starting next week. I believe it is. He's going to start writing the score. But it's so interesting that we're ahead of schedule so far. Because originally the release date was supposed to be May of next year for Episode 8, and they moved it when they announced Rogue One, and we were going to have a Star Wars film a year, and December is their spot. We're not even up to Rogue One's release yet, and we're way ahead of the game on Episode 8. So the speculation is, could they move it to May, considering also that next year is the 40th anniversary of Star Wars? Is there going to be a May the 4th, 40th release anniversary insanity? I tend to think not. I'm in the realm that I think it's probably about 85% that they're going to stick with the December, because you're going to have toy sales in December for Christmas. December seems to be the lock-in. The Force Awakens is the highest-grossing domestic film of all time in December. So it makes sense that they would keep with the December. Going forward, perhaps, as we start releasing, depending on how Rogue One does, as we start releasing all these other anthology story films, whatever they are, what we're going to call them, the Han Solo film and whatnot, are we going to have multiple release dates for Star Wars at that point? Are we going to start getting a May and a December? So, we'll see. That's interesting to think about. In other minor news, going back to the Marvel Universe, Michael Pena has been confirmed to return in Ant-Man and Wasp, which is not too surprising, but I'm glad that he is. I felt he really helped drive the narrative of Ant-Man forward. Plus, he's incredibly funny, and I like him in all the wide variety of films he actually does. He's been in a lot of crazy things. He was in Fury, and he was in Observe and Report, and then on the other, he's on an End of Watch, and he's all over the place, this guy. So I really like Michael Pena a lot. I thought that his character in Ant-Man was absolutely totally clutch in that film. He really helped with not only with the comedy, him and T.I. and his group of buddies there with the Waffles, but he really helped push the story forward. He was kind of one of the co-narrators of the story. So I'm glad that they're bringing him back for Ant-Man and Wasp. Now, coming out of that, we have to talk about the fact that Mr. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, another internet, social media guy. If you don't follow him on Twitter or Instagram or anything, he's one of the best. So go follow him. So he's just wrapped the new Fast and Furious, the new, I guess it's Furious 8 at this point. He just wrapped 8, and there was some controversy where he was talking about candy asses on set and stuff, and the speculation it was that it was Vin Diesel. And neither of that has been confirmed, and I'm pretty sure it was probably definitely like some sort of to create buzz. It was definitely some sort of marketing thing that they're trying to create buzz around the movie. I mean, whatever. They're trying to create some press and a little publicity. Why not? But anyway, The Rock has finished He just wrapped that, and he's returning to do Jumanji in 2 weeks, which we knew. Well, they start filming in 2 weeks. So now Jumanji was announced a while ago. It's actually starring him, Jack Black, and Kevin Hart. And the question I had was, they're going to try and use Jack Black to replace Robin Williams, and I mean, how do you toe the line there? Because look, I'm not like the biggest Jumanji fan in the world. I saw the movie once, like when it first came out. I wasn't like blown away by it, but I love Robin Williams, and I think it was a little touchy on how are they going to handle this since he unfortunately is not with us anymore. So The Rock has come out, and he's cleared the air for all of us. And it's actually going to be a sequel to the original story, which I totally think is the way to handle this. It's respectful to Robin Williams' character portrayal in the first film. And it acknowledges that, yeah, that's happened in this world. And I think that that's a good way of doing it. And I think that a lot of films should do that. Rather than doing these reboots and remakes and everything else, I feel like Ghostbusters probably suffered pretty heavily from that. Had they done it and stuck with the original piece and did it sort of as a handoff to a new characters, or like I've always said that they always make the joke, the franchise the franchise possibilities will make us rich beyond our wildest dreams. I feel like they could have used that right there, that line from the original film when Ray sells his parents' home back to the bank to get the money to start the Ghostbusters. Bill Murray says that line. That right there is the plot of the new Ghostbusters movie. Why they fucked that up, I have no idea. Cash grab. Everybody got greedy. Everything was just insane with that film, and the movie was awful, and it was just... Anyway, but I think the studios can learn a big lesson from that, and when they try to reboot these things, and you're recasting people who are beloved characters, or maybe even if you're changing it, you're sort of pretending that shit never happened before. That's not the right move, because it doesn't always work. I mean, very rarely does it work. I mean, very rarely nowadays does it work. Like movies like The Thing, that was a remake. The original Ben-Hur, not the original, the Charlton Heston Ben-Hur from '59, that was a remake of a Ben-Hur that was done in like the early 30s. We're going to get to this new Ben-Hur in a minute. But like, the studios like don't seem to understand that. Like, they keep rebooting these things. If you're going to go and talk and go into a property or a franchise that's well liked or loved and holds a special place in people's hearts, which I know Jumanji does to a lot of people. Not me personally, but it does to a lot of people. You're never going to get it right for the most part. If anything, you're going to maybe try and rope in some new people and hope that the fans of the original property respect what you've done. But I think this is the right way of doing it. In the property, just continue it on. Tell a different story within that world, but acknowledge that original happened. Acknowledge that. Keep that world. And I think movie studios don't seem to get that, and movies really suffer from it. And I think this is a step in the right direction. I'm going to be interested to see what they do with Jumanji. I'll have to rewatch the first one again and see if they handled it well going into the second one. I guess that remains to be seen, but I do think this is a good philosophy on since we're going to keep getting these reboots and remakes and everything else, and these old titles brought back because the studios think they're going to make money off of them. Show a little more respect to the source material. Don't like wink at it and try to do a little too much fan service like Ghostbusters did throughout the film, but at the same time pretend that it never really happened. But you have all these winks and nods at it. That just confuses everything. If you're going to do these, just stay in that world. Acknowledge this is a time frame later within that world. But this happened. This original thing has happened. I think it's a better mentality going into filmmaking and bringing back these old properties. That's just me. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm definitely going to want to hear that. What is this little Adobe thing popping up? Get out of here. Anyway, so anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. There's also news that that Wolverine has just finished. Wolverine 3 has just wrapped, and Hugh Jackman celebrated with a shave because he was looking real rough with that old man Logan look. There was a photo that came out a couple weeks ago where they compared the cover of the old man Logan trade, the comic, and a photo of Hugh Jackman. Maybe he was in a gym or something. It was a weird photo of him. But, I mean, it was side by side. He looked just like him. So I'm interested. I hope they get this third standalone Wolverine film right. I mean, it's the last time he's putting on the claws. Let's do Wolverine right. I mean, come on. The first one is just atrocious. Origins is awful. What they spent $150 million on in that movie, I have no idea. Because the special effects, like all the CG looks like half done. It just, I mean, they ruined Deadpool where it took Ryan Reynolds 10 fucking years to try and get it back, try and get the property so he could put it out. I'm sorry, I have like something in my eye over here. But yeah, I hope they do it right. All the set photos and stuff that I've seen looks pretty cool. You know, we're seeing Patrick Stewart looking all rough and grizzled and whatnot, coming back as Professor X, I guess for the last time. I'm not exactly sure about that. We're gonna see. But yeah, I'm really excited for this old man Logan inspired final Wolverine movie. I really hope they finally do it right. The second Wolverine movie, The Wolverine, was better than the first one, but I wouldn't say it was a good movie. We got ninjas in it, but he didn't. I mean, I don't know. It was okay, I guess. It was better than the first one, but that's really not saying much. I hope they give it to it. They do it. I hope they do it right for him this time. Now, going back to what I was talking about before, Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur came out this past weekend and fucking fell on its face. It cost $100 million to make. I think they spent like another $100 million to market it. And they marketed it poorly because they didn't really know exactly what they were trying to market to, whether they were trying to market to faith. If they were trying to market it to the religious market, but at the same time they wanted to market it to young kids, and at the same time they wanted to market it to secular audiences, but I don't really think they did well at any of them. Why they even remade this movie, I have no idea. I mean, the 1959 Ben-Hur starring Charlton Heston. Well, whatever you think of Charlton Heston, he was great in those old films, in those old roles. And you know, it's an epic masterpiece, Ben-Hur, the 59, which is a remake of one from the 30s. But it's this sprawling epic that is widely known as one of these great Hollywood masterpieces of that age. And so they came back with this new revamped, you know, with the CG and everything else, and they brought back Ben-Hur. And it fell on its face. And I have not seen the film yet, nor do I think that I'm going to. Not in the theater anyway. But I did hear that Jack Houston and Toby Kebbell, they're great in it. The thing is, they're so good in it that they're acting, they're bringing more than the material it really has. It doesn't have, like they're bringing more than the script is giving them to bring. So they sort of stand out a little strangely. And you know, Morgan Freeman, I hear, is actually phoning it in, like he's just looking at that paycheck, I guess. I don't know. I feel like it's a film that really didn't have have to be remade again, and it's a weird time period to do it. They were expecting this to be a big summer blockbuster, which, I mean, they have not been doing well with these swords and sandals movies at all. It's time to hang up the sandals. Put the sandals away. They are just not doing this. I mean, how long ago did Gladiator come out? And really, like, outside of, like, 300, they really haven't done it well since then. I mean, say what you will about Clash of the Titans. I personally didn't think it was all that spectacular. I mean, it did warrant a sequel, but I don't know, man. Give it up with these swords and sandals things. I mean, first of all, to make it look good, it's not cheap. It's expensive to put your movies in these time periods. To get it right, that's not cheap. And then, because that costs so much, then the acting comes down a little bit, and we maybe don't get those great actors that we want in these roles. Maybe we pay somebody who's not so well known. Maybe they're kicking ass on a TV show or something. And these movies suffer, and then, and then the CG spectacle gets a little ridiculous, and then we have to get into the whole conversation of if it's taking place in specific regions on the earth, gods of Egypt, and we're not casting Egyptians, and we have to deal with that whole thing. So just put the fucking sword down, set the sandals, put them in the closet, man. It's time. Move past them. Nobody's getting laid in sandals anymore. It's time to go. It's time to move on. So Ben-Hur, why did it flop? Because nobody fucking cares. That's why. That's why. Although it did a decent. I mean, not decent. It did the best out of its markets in the South, like Bible Belt area, which I guess is not too surprising. I don't know. If you liked Ben-Hur and you saw it, let me know below what you think. We'll have a conversation about it. I just think these swords and sandals epics gotta go. I don't care what the property is. I mean, they're just not doing them well, and they end up looking ridiculous. And, like, give Gerard Butler other movies to be in besides sticking him in sandals. I know he's not in this, but put him in other movies. So anyway, yeah, it's Ben-Hur. I don't know. I don't know why they made Ben-Hur. I don't know anybody that wanted to see it. If you want to see Ben-Hur, go watch the Charlton Heston original. It's fucking great. There's the story of Ben-Hur. Something I found out earlier today, which I found a little interesting, and immediately I was really pissed off, and then I found out a little bit of like what the idea behind it is going to be, and then I was slightly intrigued. So, the CW has these, the CW on TV, they have these shows, the Vampire Chronicles or Diaries or whatever this stuff is. Apparently the Vampire, I think it's the Vampire Diaries. It's done very well, but it's coming to an end, and the CW wants to do another vampire-inspired show, and they got the Lost Boys. They got the Lost Boys property, and they're going to make a show out of it. So immediately I'm like, oh God, the CW making the Lost Boys. Oh, it's going to be more of a shit that I just don't care about and don't watch. And I love the Lost Boys film. It's such a great film. I mean, I don't love a lot of what Joel Schumacher does, but that's one of his better films. So I was like really upset that they were putting it in the CW universe. Then I found out it's going to follow the Lost Boys, but they have it already planned out to be 7 seasons. And every season is going to take place in a specific decade of time. The first season is going to be the 60s. And that the stories will change from season to season, as will all the characters, except for the Lost Boys. And the series will follow the Lost Boys essentially through time as they are immortal for 7 seasons. So that intrigued me a little bit. Am I nervous on the CW? Of course I am. What the fuck do I watch on the CW? I don't watch shit on the CW. I watch I don't know, is The Flash on CW? I watch him on Netflix, so I'm not really sure. I don't know, I'm a little intrigued now that I've heard the concept behind it. I don't know. Let me know what you think about this. I haven't heard anything as far as casting goes or anything like that. They've only just announced it. So I'm going to follow this a little more and keep you updated on what's going on with that. Because I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you for stopping by. Make sure you click like and make sure you click subscribe and share and leave me some comments down below, and we'll talk about, if you want to talk about Ben-Hur, if you think that it was a warranted remake, I mean, fucking lay it on me. We'll talk. We'll talk about some Infinity, whatever you want to talk about. Just leave me a message and we'll talk. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Like I said, click like, subscribe, share, pimp me out. Make sure that you stay tuned in, and I'll keep you informed on what's going to go on with Get Stuffed and what the release date on that will be next week. And make sure you follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Terry the Loon. And thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you tomorrow.